ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम। ब्रह्मानंदं परमसुखदं केवलं ज्ञानमूर्तिं द्वन्द्वातीतं गगनसदृशं तत्त्वमस्यादिलक्ष्यम् एकं नित्यं विमलमचलं सर्वधी साक्षिभूतं भावातीतं त्रिगुणरहितं सद्गुरुं तं नमामि। यं प्रव्रजन्तमनुपेतमपेतकृत्यं द्वैपायनो विरहकातर आजुहाव पुत्रेति तन्मयतया तरवोऽभिनेदुस्तं सर्वभूतहृदयं मुनिमानतोऽस्मि। स्वसुखनिवृतचेतास्तद्युतस्तान्यभावोऽप्यजितरुचिरलीला आकृष्टसारस्तदीयं व्यतनुतकृपया यत्तत्त्वदीपं पुराणं तमखिलवृजनघ्नं व्याससूनुं नतोऽस्मि। यस्वानुभावमखिलश्रुतिसारमेकमध्यात्मदीपमतितितीर्षतां तमोऽन्धम् संसारिणां करुणयाः पुराणगुह्यं तं व्याससूनुमुपयामि गुरुं मुनीनां। यश्वेतत्त्वमुपागतः कृतयुगे त्रेतायुगे रक्ततां युग्मे यः कपिलः कलौ च भगवान् कृष्णत्वमायागतं कर्तारं जगतो वदन्ति मुनयः यो योगिभिर्गीयते स ब्रह्मा यदि वा हरिर्यदि शिवो यः कोऽपि तस्मै नमः। वंशीविभूषितकरान्नवनीरदाभात् पीताम्बरादरुणबिम्बफलाधरोष्टात् पूर्णेन्दुसुन्दरमुखादरविन्दनेत्रात् कृष्णात् परं किमपि तत्त्वमहं न जाने। सच्चिदानन्दरूपाय कृष्णाय क्लिष्टकारिणे नमो वेदान्तवेद्याय गुरवे बुद्धिसाक्षिणे। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। श्रीगणेशशारदगुरुभ्यो नमः। श्रीशिवाय गुरवे नमः। So in the last session we saw how Suta Pauranika, Suta Maharshi, he was invoking and offering respects to his guru Sri Shuka. Now Suta is proceeding to continue the same in the next verse as well. How is he going to do that? By describing the kripalutvam or compassion of his guru. That is what Sridhara is writing in his introductory remark to his commentary of this verse. This is what Sridhara writes. Tat kripalutam darshayan aha yasvanubhavamiti. So let us look at the verse itself. So today's verse is the third verse. Yasvanubhavamakhilasrutisaaramekam adhyatmadipam atititirshatam tamondham samsarinam karunayaha purana guhyam tam vyasasunumupayami gurum muninam. There is a verse. The padacheda would be yaha swanubhavam akhilasrutisaram ekam adhyatmadipam atititirshatam tamaha andham samsarinam karunaya aha purana guhyam tam vyasasunum upayami gurum muninam. There is a padacheda. And the anvaya would be yaha andhandamaha atititirshatam samsarinam karunaya Yekamadhyatmadipam swanubhavamagilasrutisaram purana guhyam aha tam muninam gurum vyasasunum ahamupayami. That will be the anvaya. So the meaning would be yaha, meaning he who, swa anubhavam, meaning self assimilated experience. Akhila Sruti. Akhila means all that is. Sruti means the Vedas. So Akhila Sruti means all the Vedas. Saram means the essence. Basically the essence of all the Vedas. Ekam meaning unique, the only one. Adhyatma Deepam. Adhyatma means Atmanamadhi, the spiritual truth of oneself. Deepam is a torch or a light. Atititir Shatam means desirous of overcoming. Titirsha means Tartum Icha, a desire to cross over. Titirshata means those who have that desire to overcome. What? Andham Tamaha, Tamondham. Andham means blinding. Tamaha means darkness. Tamondham means the blinding darkness of ignorance. Who are they? Samsarinam, of people of world, who are worldly. Karunaya, out of compassion. Aha, aha means said. It is a past tense of uvacha. What did he say? Purana Guhyam. Purana means Bhagavata Puranam. Guhyam means Rahasyam, very confidential. Tam, to that person who narrated the Purana, Vyasa Sunum, the son of Vyasa, Shuka, Upayami, I take refuge. Gurum, because he is the spiritual preceptor, Muninam, of even great sages. So the meaning, overall meaning is, I seek refuge in the son of Vyasa, Shuka Maharshi, who is the spiritual master of sages, who had out of compassion for people of the world, who are desirous to cross over the ocean of the blinding darkness of ignorance, narrated the secret among the Puranas, the Bhagavata Purana, which is the only one lamp of spiritual truth, full of its own unique glory, and is the essence of all the Vedas. Now Sridhara here writes, Andham Gadam Tamaha Samsarakhyam Atitartum Ichhatam Purananam Madhye Guhyam Yad Gopyam Tatra Hetutvena Chatvari Visheshanani Ekam Advitiyam Akalasrutinam Saram. Adhyatmam Tasya Deepam Sakshat Prakashkam Upayami Sharanam Brajami. So what Sridhara says here is that there are 4 adjectives. Tatra Hetutvena Chatvari Visheshanani. Hetutvena means for a reason. So he says all these 4 different adjectives are given to this Bhagavata Purana with a reason in mind by Suta. He says, Tatra Hetutvena Chatvari Visheshanani. The 4 adjectives are, number 1, Ekam, meaning full of its own unique glory. Number 2, Adhyatma Deepam, which is the only one lamp shedding light to the reality of oneself. Swanubhavam, and this one was expounded by Shuka because it was experienced by him, which is Akhila Shruti Saram as well, which is also the essence of all the Vedas, the Upanishads. So before going into this 4 adjectives, we will look at the basic sentence of the verse. The basic sentence is, Tam Vyasa Sunum Muninam Gurum Upayami. I seek refuge in the son of Vyasa, that is Shuka, the spiritual preceptor of all the great sages. And whom did he, and what did this Shuka do? Saha Karunaya Aha Andham Gadam Tamaha Samsarakhyam Atitartum Ichhatam Purananam Madhye Guhyam Gopyam Karunaya Aha. Meaning, those who are desirous of crossing over this blinding ignorance of samsara, for them he narrated this Rahasyam Puranam. Now, why is this ignorance of samsara termed as Andham Tamaha, the blinding darkness of ignorance. And how is this samsara crossed? How is this ignorance, this delusion overcome? This secret, which is Guhyam, was narrated by Shuka in the Bhagavata. And the main purpose of this narration was to purify the Srota. Anyone who listens to this, that listener's mind has to become pure, so that he'll be adhikari for jnanam. That is the idea behind Shuka narrating this secret teaching. So what do you mean by this pure mind? What is a pure mind and what is an impure mind? The answer is given in Amrita Bindu Upanishad. Mana eva manushyanam karanam bandha mokshayoho. Bandhaya vishayasaktam muktei nirvishayam manaha. That is the Upanishad sentence. For a man, the mind is the cause of bondage, and the mind indeed is the cause of release, of freedom as well. How? Bandhaya vishayasaktam, the third line. And the fourth line, mukyai nirvishayam manaha. The mind that is absorbed in the sense objects, indulging in ceaseless sensual pursuit, is the cause of bondage. And the mind which is detached from the sense objects, which is turned inwards, that is the mind which is the cause of freedom. So therefore, the mind which is always engaged in dharma is eventually the cause of freedom. A serene mind has desires, but those desires are non-binding, because the very word mind means desires. There is no such thing called desire-free mind. There is no mind without desire. Otherwise, Sridharacharya would not write this commentary to Bhagavatam. He had a desire to write. Shuka would not have spoken Bhagavatam. He had a desire to speak the Bhagavatam. Aha, he said. So the question is not whether we have desires or no desires. The question is whether we have binding desires or non-binding desires. And when our desires are non-binding, our transaction with others, our relationship with others will become free from bondage. This way, the entire human relationships, humanity can relate easily with one another, to each other, and be filled with happiness and peace. As the minds of more and more individuals get purified, thus becoming a universal reality. So this is the secret that was taught by Shuka in the Srimad Bhagavatam. It lights up the light of Adhyatma Deepam that awakens in the hearts of those who hear it or read it, by disseminating the knowledge which removes, which repels, which drives away all the sins. Tamaha andham, the blinding darkness of ignorance and sorrow, because sorrow is always the result of sin. And the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Adhyatma Deepam, dispels it completely. Sin or papam is called akrityam, an action resulting in sorrow. An action which results in sorrow is called as papa. In other words, balavad anishta anubandhi, an action which results in an undesirable situation, thereby causing sorrow. And the indulgence in papa it invariably brings suffering. And we cannot indulge in sin when we are sitting down to hear the Srimad Bhagavatam. But what about suffering from the past actions, past sins? As a matter of fact, even that suffering is quietened when you begin to listen to Srimad Bhagavatam. This is very clearly explained in the second canto, 8th chapter, the 5th verse. Pravishta karnarandroyam pravishta karnarandrena swanam bhavasaroruham. So Bhagavan Sri Krishna enters the lotus of his devotee's heart. How? Through the path of the ear, karnarandrena. And does what? Dhunoti shamalam krishna salilasya yatha sharat. And he removes all the impurity or shamalam in one's thought. Salilasya yatha sharat. Just as in the autumn season called Sharat Ritu, which turns all the muddy waters clear, similarly, Krishna, seated in the heart of his devotees, cleans it. And Krishna has already entered the lotus-like heart of Sri Shuka. Sri Shuka's heart is nothing other than his Anubhava. That is why in the Vijayadhwaja, a famous commentator of Sri Vaishnava school, he explains this adjective, Yat Swanubhavam, the very first word, as qualifying as an adjective to Shuka. Why? Because Shuka is the one who expounded Brahman, Sri Krishna, as Swanubhavam. So he says Swanubhavam is equal to Swanubhavam of Shuka. And thereby he narrated his experience as Bhagavata Puranam. So the Shastras indicate that the mind which is established in a firm foundation of values can turn those values into virtues through Viveka. A virtue is a value that is actualized by constant abhyasa or practice. Value means that which is valued, that which is respected, though one may not follow it, though it may not be followed. But when we see someone display these values, who have actualized it by practice, and you are in utter awe and respect looking at them, you wonder as to how at this tender age these girls have mastered the recital of Tulasi Ramayana, how they have been invited to Ayodhya for Bhumi Puja. You wonder how that person is truthful, how this person is upright, how this person is virtuous, dharmic. They are worthy of your utmost respect. But when those values are understood thoroughly and assimilated intellectually and lived by practice, then the mind is lifted from its baser level to a higher system of noble living. It is freed of its base tendencies, Ashubha Vasanas. And then such a mind indeed has a greater stability. It becomes very sattvic, stable. So for this reason, for the removal of suffering and to attain a mind that which is filled with bhava, with virtues, and therefore is noble and stable and dharmic, I seek Shuka, tam vyasasunam gurum upayami. I seek refuge in the son of Vyasa, that is Shuka, the spiritual preceptor of sages. Why is Shuka here addressed as Vyasa Sunum, the son of Vyasa? Because anybody who is practicing dhyana, meditation, kriya yoga, bhakti, worship, or just following the teachings of Advaita, the inherent oneness in all beings, owes all this knowledge being received from the parampara of sage Veda Vyasa. As they say in traditional circles, Vyasochishtam Jagat Sarvam. All spiritual knowledge has its source in Vyasa. So sage Maharshi Veda Vyasa is symbolic of the Guru Shishya Parampara, the teacher-student tradition. So by addressing Shuka as Vyasa, Vyasa Sunu, or the son of the disciple of Vyasa, Suta is recognizing this Vedic tradition. The scriptures clearly point in many places that in order to gain jnanam, one needs a guru, a preceptor. And that guru himself needs to be part of a parampara, a lineage, consisting of a succession of teachers and disciples, so that he will be a sampradaya-vid, or the knower of tradition, and a srotriya, one who has discerned the underlying true meaning of the Vedas. And why is it that nowadays the student, the seeker, is not able to give the traditional teacher the benefit of doubt? There are a few reasons. Number one, the illusion that through effective thinking one can by himself understand anything. And this makes one think that the idea of a traditional guru is redundant. And in this age of internet, the access to information is like karatala amalakam, like a fruit in your palm, so easily available at the press of a button, and has but fortified this illusion, the illusion that I can intellectually understand anything if I think it through. But in matters of adhyatmam, of traditional learning, this model just does not work. From ancient times, we are instructed to seek refuge in a bona fide spiritual preceptor. But now, we want things in our own terms. So we don't want to surrender upayami because of this misunderstanding of the very term surrender. The vision of the Veda is that we are complete and free as we are Purnam. That's what the Upanishad says. Purnameva vasishyate. And since we are complete, surrender or letting go in the Vedic context only means giving up our old conditionings that restricts our understanding of ourselves, resulting in unnecessary strife and sorrow. A traditional teacher does not expect subservience and does not seek to dominate the student. Anyone who wants to dominate another will try to convince the other that he has a problem and that cannot be solved unless you take them into confidence. This is mere manipulation through indirect, deceptive or underhanded tactics. But if someone says you have a problem, then that person is going to definitely manipulate you. On the other hand, if you are told that the problem that you seem to have is an error, a universal error, then surely there is a possibility that this error can be corrected. Because if the problem is real, no one will ever be able to solve that. And the Shastra, in fact, looks at the whole human problem as an error. Thus, the one who says the problem is an error and that error is not just limited to you alone, not your own personal error, but is an pervasive in nature, such a person can be termed as a traditional teacher, a guru, a sampradaya with. This is what is further clarified by the next adjective presenting Bhagavatam as the essence of all the Vedas as Akhila Sruti Saram. Akhila Sruti means various conclusions about reality found in the Vedas. And the word Saram means the essential, the basic vision, or the culminating vision of the four Vedas. That means this vision that provides the highest knowledge, knowing which the final conclusion of Vedas are understood. Then one's understanding is very clear, by which one is firmly rooted in reality, because there is a certainty in that conclusion. So Srutisaram is the conclusion or the culmination of the body of knowledge of Vedas, which brings the seeker to stop seeking. In other words, they come to a point where they are no longer asking what more is there. This is very well illustrated in the Mundaka Upanishad, in the first section, third verse, when Shishya Shaunaka approaches his teacher Acharya Angiras, and the Shishya says to the Acharya, Shaunako havai mahashalo angirasam vidhivadupasanna papracha kasminnu bhagavo vijñāte sarvamitam vijñātam bhavatiti. O revered sir, respected sir, what is that knowledge, knowing which everything here becomes known? Or what is that knowledge, once known, the answers to all questions one has are also known? And here Shaunaka is not referring to relative knowledge. He is talking about the essential knowledge. For example, if we have ornaments made out of gold, then there are different forms, different names, functions and shapes to these golden ornaments. However, all these forms are known with the essential knowledge of these forms and names, which is the one gold. Similarly, what is that one knowledge, knowing which the entire world of objects of thoughts becomes known at once? By knowing that, the seeker's knowledge hunting comes to an end. Why? Because the teacher conclusively teaches that knowledge of what reality is not at first, so that these false conclusions regarding reality can come to an end, and that results in the knowing of the essential reality that we are seeking. So this is further clarified by Sridhara while explaining the next adjective presenting Bhagavatam as Adhyatma Deepam. Sridhara says, Atmanam Karyakarana Sanghadam Adhikritya Vartamanam Atma Tattvam Adhyatmam. So Bhagavatam is a lamp that sheds lights on Atma Tattvam, the reality of oneself. So Tattvam is often said to mean reality, but in fact, it is the very Swarupa of Atman. Atman is unqualified existence or Satyam, knowledge, Jnanam, and Anantam it is, limitless. And it is Shuddham, it is pure. And it is Nityam, it is timeless. And this Atman can be understood through the various implied meanings, lakshanas of each of these words. Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. And it is the cause of this world. It is Jagat Karanam. At the same time, by itself, it is Satyam, Jnanam, and Anantam, or limitless, joyful awareness. This then is the Atma Swarupam and is called Tattvam. It is the only Satya, the only reality, but it is also the Karana of everything here. Therefore, everything is Atma Tattvam. This is what Bhagavatam sheds light into. Now, if everything is Atma, that is limitless, joyful awareness, then why is it that there is so much darkness? Why is it there is so much sadness? It is due to Atma or Anatma. If you say you are sad because of Anatma, the Anatma is going away, it is slipping away, though it is making you sad. So you must see that going is the nature of Anatma and that the Anatma is not real. Therefore, knowing this fact, you cannot feel sad for the Anatma. When one's understanding of Satya is lacking, then Mithya becomes Satya. As pointed out in the very first verse, Yatra Sargo Mrisha. So if you ask what is the problem with this Mithya Jnanam, the answer is it results in the confusion leading to sadness. So we, through Vichara, should see that without Satya, there is no Mithya. And Mithya must be understood as Mithya and Satya as Satya. Only then does everything fall in its place. Satya does not invoke any sorrow as it is Ananta Ananda Swarupa because it is limitless, joyful awareness. And what is this motivation for Shuka to reveal this Bhagavatam to us? Sridhara already answered that in his introductory remark. Tat kripalutam darshayan naha, karunaya aha. So karunaya means out of compassion. That is the motivation. So the compassion is the motivation for Shuka. A spiritual preceptor is a symbol of love and affection and spontaneous care. Shuka is someone who always wishes praise for the welfare of entire humanity, who never lets down when you are in trouble. Because with great compassion, Shuka takes into account the need for the human being to achieve various things in life which he has already started to pursue, and talks and thoroughly examines about these various pursuits, various means and ends for one to achieve them. And finally, through self-knowledge, gets the person out of the pursuits of these means and ends. So Sridhara points out Suta's observation and praise of Shuka as Yaha Karunaya Aha. And therefore, Suta takes refuge in him. Tam Vyasasonumupayami Gurum Muninam. So that concludes the Guru Vandanam. And the next one is Devata Namaskaranam. which we will see the next session. Swasti prajabhyah paripalayantam nyayena margena mahim mahisha gobrahmanebhyah shubhamastu nityam loka samasta sugino bhavantu sarve bhavantu suginah sarve santu niramaya sarve bhadrani pashyantu ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.